Nelson Goodman. I'm a practicing physician in Maryland in Prince George's County and have been for the last 30 years. I'm the past chairman of the peer review committee on drugs of the State Medical Society. I certainly agree with the view that living in a city like Baltimore with 30,000 heroin addicts and 20,000 cocaine addicts, and those are health department figures, is a formula for disaster, because all of them are criminals and simply by nature of their illness, if I can call it that, and they have to do often criminal acts in order to support their illness. There must be a better way. What the better way is, I'm really not certain. I can only talk from a medical viewpoint. Arnold Treback said just an hour ago that if all drugs were legalized tomorrow, he would like it better than the present situation, but he would be very fearful. I'm not sure that we have to jump from the frying pan into the fire. I just don't know. From a medical standpoint, I believe physicians would like to be able to help people who have this drug problem. But we are very much restrained, not so much by the law, but by so-called standards of practice and peer review and many types of incursion and controls over our practice. If a patient came in and said to me, I'm a heroin addict and I've failed treatment 10 times, and the only thing that's going to keep me off the streets and out of the hospital is if you get me some Dilaudid and help me through this period, the best thing I can do for him, according to the current standards of practice, is to give him a list of facilities where he can be treated. And incidentally, the Post said that there were 2,000 on the waiting list last month for treatment in this city. So he couldn't get in very promptly. Give him a list of treatment facilities and get him out of my office as fast as possible before he prevailed on me to be sympathetic to his condition and try to give him a few pills. And I've had the experience, believe me, if I did give him a few pills, I would very likely hear from the police. And I have heard from the police over such matters. It's even more complicated because a lot of the people that we see have pain and addiction. They have both. You can argue about the use of the term addiction because some people feel that if you're taking the medicine for pain, by definition, you're not addicted. But anyway, that's the problem that we have. We do see a lot of drug addicts. I am in a middle-class area. I don't see too many people who are extreme victims of addiction, except that I teach the residents and see them in the hospital. Those people we treat for their diseases that are the result of drug abuse, AIDS, and hepatitis, endocarditis, abscesses, and all the rest, syphilis. We treat them for that, but we don't really treat them for their drug abuse, and one reason is that we don't know how. There's very little training of the physician in the management of these diseases, and as a matter of fact, that's how I met Arnold Treback, was that I went to England and I thought I would talk to the people there in authority, see what they did, what their system was, although he says it's a non-system. And I was told that I shouldn't ask Mr. Spears, who was in the Home Office at that time, about their system. I should come back home and ask Arnold about it. I think the reason that their system is a non-system is probably the same reason ours is. The treatment of drug abuse has not been recognized as a legitimate and important, as a matter of fact, one of the biggest public health problems we have is a legitimate part of medical practice. When I looked around last year, there were no courses by the American College of Physicians, which is my professional group, on the subject of drug abuse. Can you imagine? My feeling about it is that a first step is to train ourselves to manage this problem, make it a legitimate part of medical practice. Then we need the help of our leaders. And actually, Mr. Curran is our Attorney General in Maryland, and I spoke to him about this. And he said, believe it or not, exactly what I said. It's terrible that a patient can't come into you and say, I'm a heroin addict, and get some help. As I see it, it may or may not be a long process. We began, and I must say this to you, that most of the doctors I talk to favor legalization. But what does it mean? You know, all these drugs are legal. They're in schedules provided by the DEA. Even heroin is in Schedule 1. It doesn't have any legitimate use, but it can be changed without any change in the law, according to the DEA book, to Schedule 2. You have to convince the FDA and you have to convince NIDA that it has a proper use and it can be changed. In other words, what I'm saying is that it might be a slow and painful way, but I just don't see it in the cards. It could be wrong that we're just going to legalize all drugs. Are we going to? Valium is legal. Does that mean you should or shouldn't have a prescription for Valium? So anyway, to sum up, from a medical standpoint, what I think we need to do about this is to educate ourselves first, and I mean the physicians. And we've begun. Actually, I'm sorry I don't have copies of this, but we did make a book last year. We put on a course. We got 300 doctors down to the Baltimore Convention Center for a weekend. We would have had more if we had room. And we had wonderful talks on the subject of drug abuse and how to manage it. We made a book. And actually, at this very moment, the second annual conference is going on. I hope it's well attended at the Medical Society in Baltimore. So that's what I think is the first step. Educating ourselves. The second is getting all the universities, and they're beginning. I've spoken to my university, and there's a lady in charge of this at Hopkins, and she is organizing courses for the students. It's slow. It's hard to get them there, but she's doing it. Recognizing it is important and learning in the schools how to manage these patients and getting it recognized as a legitimate practice. So a doctor in England who was treating an addict was flying by the seat of his pants, and he wasn't sure if it was good or bad, and that's why the system doesn't work. We can't work it that way. Then we have to examine the help of current political leaders. We have some of them here. Mr. Curran is one of them, who would certainly talk to us, and I suspect he'll be the Attorney General here for a while, not the governor, if we have a program to offer him details. Which drugs are legal, how legal, do they need a prescription? All that has to be answered, and we've got to sit down, from my viewpoint this is, and do the nitty-gritty work on this subject. And the fourth thing is, and I think that we must all, that the problem, of course, no one wants to legalize drugs for children, and they don't want the children to serve, you know, as a source of income for people trying to encourage drug addiction. I think that we should all use our ability, and it will stand us in good stead, and we're doing this too in our county, to go into the schools and talk to the kids absolutely truthfully about drugs. I mean, I do not subscribe to any of the false advertising. We're doing it, and I'm going next week for our second annual visit. Thank you.